All right. Very good. Well, we're going on with the divine as mother, God as mother, mother as God, the motherhood of God, all the myriad of ways of talking about it. And we've long talked about how God has manifested in many bodies and many faces, and all the sexes as well. And so that life experience in the divine, of course, is complete. So none of us has to hold a unique secret from the beloved that that mother has been here. Mother has been there, done that about everything that we go through. And so we can find that divine empathy, which is really important to us, actually, in developing that relationship. Because at first, the relationship is make believe, right? At first, we're very convinced of body, mind, and the material world that it presents to us. And initially, that's what we take to be real. And so when we start talking about God and spirit and one without a second, and God being everywhere present and always perfect, that these ideas don't really jive initially. They're hard to comprehend. They don't, in a real way, they don't strike us. And slowly through life, through experience, mother betrays herself. Uh, she'll put you in a situation that puts you into a corner you can't get out of, and and then in a direct way, she'll touch you and move you forward. And so God has tried every possibility to touch you and me. So he's come in as many forms and for as many reasons, with the always with the same teaching, but always with a different emphasis or a different arrangement, to try and find the way that we can hear, the way that we can understand. And through the Ramakrishna incarnation, God took on a prism form. He became three in one: Mother, Vivekananda, and Ramakrishna, all of them divine manifestations in their own right, and all of them a complete manifestation in their own right, which is a fascinating thing, because each time an avatar has come, he's given the full teaching, but only through one personality, through one character, through one story. And it's interesting that this time God has come in a diverse arrangement of three faces, three stories, uh, and still one manifestation of the beloved. And if you sit and meditate on, you become to understand that really right now in the world, there's 7 billion avatars of the divine, and but none of us holds the complete story. That's the difference. We're a difference in power. And so somebody would have to make a big bouquet of 7 billion people in order to get the story of God through us. But through the when with the incarnations, you get the whole story at once in a singularity. And so God is ever broadening and ever uh, forever making every effort to find a way to touch every person. And so this viewing the beloved as mother is for a very special incarnation, I think, for a very special set of people. And so we left mother crossing the Teo Balo. Is that the name of it? The field that they had to get across, the dacoits field, and mother has fallen behind, and it's dusk. So the sun is setting, all of her companions have run ahead, and we've got mother. Mother, sweet, unassuming. I would say timid, but she's not timid for sure, but very unpresumptuous, unpresuming, the presence of mother, uh, walking across this dacoit field in the dark by herself, telling her companions to go on without her. She'll catch up at the inn and meet them at the inn. So think about that. I mean, especially as a woman, you know, that's a risk. That's a lot of courage, and that she gave them permission to go ahead, I can't imagine that myself. I mean, if I was with a group and there was this young woman who was not able to keep up, never would I think it would be acceptable to to leave her alone in the dark with the idea of meeting me at the inn when she got there. But here it is. It's an opportunity for Mother to demonstrate she is not just a young defenseless woman. She is an incarnation of God, and that within her is a fierceness and a strength which comes out through the rest of her life. I mean, when you see how steady she remained and what a source of wisdom she became to the order and to the early monks of the order, and the power of teaching and of salvation, to use a very non-Vedantic word, but the power of freeing us, and being able to touch us in ways that God as man can't, is not able to do. And so here we see her kind of showing us a different side, the Kali side of womanhood. The powerful, fierce warrior, courageous aspect of womanhood, which is not often spoken about or played up much. But in Kali, we have that complete manifestation, that fierceness, that strength, that power of the feminine, of the divine feminine. And here, Holy Mother is giving us a vision of that, giving us a taste of that, saying, yes, this is a small and frail body, but do not mistake it. There is something very powerful, very vital, inhabiting this body. And this, to me, is the proper is probably not the best word to choose, but I'll stick with it for now. The proper ideal of womanhood, a fierceness, a strength, an independence, a courage, a selflessness, I think, unique in this incarnation, unique in Mother. And so let's catch up with her. So they have already gotten out of sight. She is now alone. It's dark. She's in the field of the dacoits, the field of the thieves, and walking along. And it says, Holy Mother then continued along as fast as she could, but she was terribly exhausted. After a while, the sun sank below the horizon of the field. Extremely anxious, she wondered what to do. Just then she saw a tall, dark, fearsome-looking man with a staff on his shoulder rapidly approaching her. Okay. The people at the inn would never see me, because I would, at that point, would have done a 180-degree turn, and I would have been bolting back to my little hut in Jairambati as fast as I could possibly go. But she continues on, and it gets fascinating. Most of you probably know this story, but it's amazing how this turns out. Another person, probably his partner, was behind him, so she can't quite see who these folks are. She realized that it was useless to run away or to shout, so she stood still and awaited their arrival with great fear. Okay, so she doesn't run. She sees the situation as it is, and decides to take it, just face it head on, not run, not move, just see what's coming. And it's an interesting perspective to take. Like, she doesn't know who they are. She doesn't know the nature of it. So she's not making assumptions. You see, that's a big teaching in and of itself right there, is when you go into a situation or you are in a situation, don't let the mind draw the conclusions prematurely. Stay open, stay alert, stay learning the whole time, constantly taking the situation in. Don't start reacting to a story that isn't the one being presented. And so we see that in Mother. She's afraid. She sees that she doesn't know what kind of couple they are, who they are, and why they're coming toward her rapidly, it says. But she stands there and faces them. Within a few moments, the man reached her and asked harshly, "Who are you, standing here alone at this hour of the evening?" To placate him, Holy Mother surrendered to him completely, addressing him as Father. Father, my companions have left me behind, and it seems I have lost my way. Kindly accompany me to where they are. Your son-in-law lives at the Kali temple in Dakshineshwar. I am going to him. If you accompany me there, he will certainly appreciate your kindness and show you proper courtesy. No sooner had she said this than his companion arrived. Holy Mother noticed that it was not a man, but a woman, his wife. When Holy Mother saw her, she was greatly reassured. Holy Mother then took her hand and addressed her as Mother, saying, Mother, I am your daughter, Sarada. My companions have left me behind, and I was in great danger. It is sheer luck that you and Father have come. I do not know what I would have done otherwise. Holy Mother's unhesitating and simple behavior, her complete trust, and her sweet words melted the hearts of the Bhakti highwayman and his wife. Forgetting social customs and caste, they accepted her as their own daughter and consoled her. Aware of her physical exhaustion, they would not allow her to go farther that night, but they took her to a small shop near the villages of Telo Belo and arranged for her to stay the night. The woman made a bed for Holy Mother with some of her own clothes and other things, and the man brought puffed rice and sweetened parched rice for her to eat. Thus, with parental love and care, they let her sleep, guarding her throughout the night. They woke her up the next morning and accompanied her to Tarakeshwar about an hour after sunrise. There they took shelter at an inn and asked her to rest. The woman told her husband, My daughter practically fasted last night. Finish your worship at the Shiva temple quickly and buy some fish and vegetables. I would like to feed her well. You've got a lot of things happening here that are really important. One is this is what the world looks like to someone who sees God in everyone. And it is what allowed Holy Mother to approach this dacoit, this highwayman, a stranger, and put aside her fear and to completely surrender herself to him, to completely let go of all of her concern, all of her worries, all of her nervousness, all of her anxiety. She surrendered herself to him completely. That can only be done to the divine. There is only that kind of trust and that kind of strength in God, in the beloved. And so Mother, seeing that, appealed to that in this man and brought out that in this couple, brought out their motherhood, brought out their fatherhood, and just through her faith. And I know every time I've read this story, I always recount the story of the Peace Pilgrim also, because she had a very similar experience where she was walking across the desert on the side of the highway, absolutely alone, and a trucker stopped to pick her up. And she gets into the truck and she curls up onto the shoulder of the truck driver and instantly falls asleep on his shoulder. And he becomes a devotee of hers because of his time in the truck with her, giving her a ride. And he wrote in his memoirs of her after she had passed, he wrote that evening I picked her up with the intention with evil intention. He said, he doesn't go into it, but you don't have to think hard about it. He said, I picked her up with evil intention. He said, but the way that she got into my truck, so trusting, so fearlessly, and how she curled up on my shoulder and fell asleep instantly, awoke in me such a fatherly responsibility for her well-being. He said that I simply couldn't act on my intention. You see, this is the power of the beloved. This is the power of the divine. This is why all of this. I mean, this is why we live a life where we try to surrender utterly and completely to the beloved. This is why we attempt and make our effort to see the beloved in each other, so that we can have this kind of openness, this kind of trust, this kind of depth and quality to the way that we treat others. And it elicits the same response back. You know, as a side note, I remember the way that Moksha Prana looked at me that day, the first time I met her. You know, when we look at each other, we see each other's faces. That's what we see. And we might see their eyes. But we talk to each other as bodies. So our gaze stays at the surface, it stays at the eyes, it stays at the face. When Mokshi Prana talked to me that day and looked at me, I felt as if I was naked. I felt as if I was completely exposed because her gaze didn't stop at my face. Her gaze didn't stop at my eyes because she was looking at the beloved in me. She was looking at me, the me of me, who was wearing this body as a garment. And she was looking past that garment. She was looking beyond that safety, that castle wall of this body, this mind that we hide behind. She looked back and she made me aware of that self that is beyond this face, that's beyond this body, that's beyond these thoughts. Just by looking at me. We're on page 80 in the book for those
Thank
needing to
you.
know. And
Thank you
so
so much.
this, yes, surely. And so this importance of what Holy Mother is demonstrating here, that the way to world peace is this seeing God in each other and arousing the knowledge of God in others by the respect with which we treat them, by the love with which we give them, by the faith that empowers us to do that in a way that surrenders ourself completely, which means what? Lays aside the concerns of the ego completely. The ego is concerned only with protection of body, mind. But Holy Mother let go of that and trusted them and awoke in them an understanding of what they were as human beings. And it's a very discreet lesson, a very subtle lesson that we can read over very easily without understanding that this is the fulfillment of that teaching. See God in each other, see God in everyone. While the man was carrying out his errands, Holy Mother's companions came to the inn in search of her and were delighted to see that she had arrived safely. When the man returned, Holy Mother introduced her adopted parents to her companions, saying, I don't know what I would have done last night if they hadn't taken me under their protection. Everyone performed worship in the Shiva temple, cooked and ate together, and had a little rest. When the party prepared for their journey to Baidyabati, Holy Mother expressed her gratitude to the Bhagdi couple and took her leave of them. Holy Mother told us later, in one night we had become so close that when we parted, we began to weep profusely. I repeatedly invited them to visit me at Dakshineshwar when they could, but even when they agreed, I parted from them with great difficulty. They accompanied us for a considerable distance. The woman picked some green peas from a nearby field, tearfully tied them in the corner of my cloth, and said plaintively, Sharada, my child, when you eat puffed rice tonight, please have these peas with it. They kept their promise and visited me a few times at Dakshineshwar, bringing sweets and other gifts. I told the master the whole story, and he received them warmly, treating them kindly as if they were his own relatives. Although my robber father is simple and well behaved now, I believe that he used to commit robbery before we met. This is that redemption. The Christians have built an entire religion around this one quality of God, the redeeming quality of the beloved, who redeems us not just by his attitude or his declaring, like a king, I now redeem you. What is that? That's meaningless. He redeems us as a response to love. He looks at you and sees himself in you, and you respond to that. You become aware of the beauty of what you are, the potential of who you are, the potential of the love, the infinite love that is your image, that is your initial self, that infinite wisdom that is you. It's through becoming aware of that wonderful image of our sweet beloved inside, that we actually transform, transcend, and become that which we've always been, because we remember, we feel it rightly. That's a wonderful thing to have somebody look at you like God and to recognize God in a real way within you, and to feel the response to that. That redeeming response is marvelous. Just, you find a strength you never realized that you had. You find a motivation that you never realized was in you, and such a clarity and such a freedom, just in the way that Mother's going to look at you face to face one day, if not already. That one moment with the beloved is going to bring you home. One can imagine the deep impression that Holy Mother made on the bandit's mind. Did he and his wife get a glimpse of her real nature? Of course they did. Who else would have approached them fearlessly, with such a surrender and such a peacefulness, and with so much respect and so much tenderness, to where by the next morning they're weeping. They're weeping to say goodbye and just wanting to spend more time together. This is the effect of the mother. This is the effect of Mother. This is the potential of every meditation. The potential of every prayer is to end that prayer weeping that it's over. Sorry that you have to get your mind on the mundane and return to the secular. This is the full potential of what we're facing. A potential of such love, such beauty, such transforming interactions, where we walk away changed ourselves and others walk away changed themselves. Not by doing, but by being. Did he and his wife get a glimpse of her real nature? She once asked them, "Why do you show me such kindness and affection?" They replied, "You are not an ordinary human being. We saw you as Mother Kali." Now, why would they have seen her as Mother Kali? Well, because she was Mother Kali, first of all, but also because she looked at them that way, and nobody looks at you that way unless they are divine. Nobody sees that in you unless they themselves are divine, have touched the divinity within. Because when we look at each other, we always see what we see inside ourselves, right? We project our inner world on everybody. And that's an important thing to know. That's why the one fundamental question in the Vedanta is, who are you? Right? Who are you? Because you must know yourself as divine before you will be able to see that divine in the eyes of anyone else. The inner world that you live in has to be one of love, one of a deep respect, one of a deep fearlessness, in order for you to be able to surrender to that love in someone else, in order for you to be able to inspire that transformation in someone else. And so our work in the end may be to change the world, but that is only done by changing ourselves, by coming to a knowledge of ourself. And it's through that the world changes. It's through that the redeeming power of God happens, not by a kingly proclamation on a throne of great glory and almightiness. Kings have been doing that for thousands of years, and what transformation has come from that? None. Transformation comes from the eyes of love. Transformation comes by accepting our nature and giving up our piddly wrong thinking that has dragged us in wrong directions for too long. It's letting go of that and finding this courageous power inside, this courageous power just demonstrated by Mother, to look the world, to look our problems, our troubles, our life, our circumstances, our conditions straight on, maybe with fear, but not in cowardice, with the determination to see the situation through and to know the beloved is present everywhere and always perfect. They replied firmly, "No, child, we have really seen you as Kali. You hide that form from us now because we are sinners." "You may say so," Holy Mother said in a detached tone, "but truly, I know nothing about it." She doesn't in that sense, because only an ego would hold that kind of memory. Only an ego would hold that kind of information. And Mother was without that. So she didn't keep track of these things like that. Oh, you may say so. I don't know anything about those things. Traveling with the Master. During the rainy season, when the mother of the Ganges became saline, when the water of the Ganges became saline, Ramakrishna suffered from stomach trouble from drinking that water, and the damp climate was not good for his health. Accordingly, during the rainy season, he would spend a few months at Kamarpukur. In July of 1877, the master went to Kamarpukur, accompanied by Holy Mother and Hriday. They went by steamer from the Armenian Ghat in Calcutta to Bandar, and via Ghatal to Midnapur district, and then took a boat to Bali Dewanganj. From there, they either walked or were conveyed by palanquin for the final 8 miles. When they arrived at Bali Dewanganj in the evening, am I saying that right, Rena? Bali Dewanganj? Do you know how to say that? Any of our Bengalis know how to say that? Just, I'm asking someone to rescue me from my ignorance here. Please help. All right. So I'll just go forward. Bali Dewanganj. When they arrived at Bali Dewanganj in the evening, it was raining incessantly, and they needed to find shelter. Banshidhar Modak and his wife, Giribala, a righteous and wealthy couple, came forward to receive these unknown guests in the newly built cottage. The next morning, Hriday wanted to continue their journey, but Banshidhar asked them to stay at his home for 3 days. When the identity of the visitors became known, the villagers flocked to Banshidhar's house to listen to the master's immortal words. As the rain continued, the master, Holy Mother, and Hriday stayed for 3 days and then left for Kamarpukur. As far as we know, this was the only occasion that Holy Mother traveled with the master. The mother later recalled, "Once we went together to Kamarpukur by boat via Bali Dewanganj. We ate wonderful prasad, and the master sang many songs on the way. What a great mood he was in. He said to me, 'I know who you are, but I will not tell you now.' He pointed to himself and said, 'Everything is inside this place.'" I can't even imagine just these little vignettes. Can you imagine being there and hearing these words being spoken with a divine profundity, a knowledge, the very most fundamental knowledge of being behind them? Can you imagine the intimacy of these words going back and forth between the Divine Mother and Ramakrishna? Him looking at her, and the smile, the laugh of the joke on his face, knowing, "I know who you are, but I'm not going to tell you yet." Just marvelous, just beautiful, beautiful. Everything is inside this place. My God. These are great little pieces for meditation. Just before you meditate, just read something like this and just sit there and allow your mind to replay this scene. What a mystery. Beautiful. It contains it all, actually. It contains the hilarity of spiritual life. It contains the game of life. It contains the ignorance that makes it playable to us. It shows the right attitude about it, to accept your ignorance for where you are. It's fine. This is a perfect moment nonetheless. As we carry on, like I know who I am, I'm just not quite aware of it yet. and we go, we go. After staying in Kamarpukur for a couple of months, Ramakrishna returned to Dakshineshwar in September of 1877. Holy Mother then went to Jairambati. Shyama Sundari loved to have her daughter's company, as she would get both physical and spiritual help. That year, despite her poverty, Shyama Sundari had managed to save some rice to offer at the village's public worship of Kali. Holy Mother later recounted that story. Once, during the Kali Puja in Jairambati, Navamukhopadhyaya did not accept our rice because of a village feud. My mother had sincerely prepared rice and other things as our contribution to the public worship, but he refused to take those from our home. As a result, my mother wept bitterly the whole night. She lamented with great agony. I made rice for Mother Kali, and he has rejected it. Who will eat this rice now? Indeed, it is Kali's rice, and none else can eat it. That night she had a vision of Jagadatri, the mother of the universe, with a red complexion, sitting cross-legged near the door. We had only one room, which belonged to my brother Bharata. When the master would come, he lived in that room. Mother Jagadatri roused her from sleep by patting her, and then said, Why are you crying? I shall eat Kali's rice. You don't need to worry. My mother asked, Who are you? Jagadatri replied, I am the mother of the universe. I will accept your worship in the form of Jagadatri. The next morning, my mother said to me, Sharada, who is that deity with a red complexion who sits with crossed legs? I will worship Jagadatri. She became very excited and resolved to worship Jagadatri. She borrowed 13 mounds of paddy from the Bishwas family to prepare rice. The rain was incessant. Then my mother prayed, O Divine Mother, how can I perform your worship? I can't dry the paddy to husk it. Finally, it so happened that by the grace of Mother Jagadatri, there was rain all around, but bright sunshine in our courtyard, where my mother had spread the paddy on a mat. The sculptor dried the clay image near a fire and then painted it. So you see again the compassion of mother and the pettiness of man because of family feuds, getting things completely out of whack, not understanding at all what's more important, your feud or the worship of the universal. Unfortunately, this is too common in us. We get tied up and caught in these small things in the world, and we forget to see God in each other. We forget to see the divine in each other, and we react to each other as egos, as bodies and minds, and we enjoy we enjoy the suffering of it too. As we each look at each other and treat each other as a body and a mind. All of our judgments about each other come from that wrong seeing. It's bodies that make us beautiful or ugly. It's lust that makes us consider wealth poor and rich. It's lust that makes us see each other as fat or skinny, as young or old, as beautiful and whatnot. All of these judgments and limitations and restrictions, they come from wrong seeing. All of our angers, all of our jealousies, all of our hatreds, all of our pettiness come down to this one problem of accepting ourselves as a body mind and not remembering this infinite universal self behind us, and not knowing that within ourselves. And so we get stuck and we go round, go round and round and round, literally chasing our own tail. My brother Prasanna went to Dakshineshwar to invite the master for the celebration. When he heard the news of the Jagadatri Puja, the master said, "The mother will come. The mother will come. Very good. Oh, your family has suffered so much poverty." Prasanna said, "Please come. I have to take you." The master replied, "My approval is as good as going to your place. Go home and perform the worship. It will bring you prosperity." Jagadatri Puja was performed nicely on the 14th of November, 1877, and all the villagers were invited and fed. Moreover, that extra rice helped to meet all the expenses. During the immersion ceremony, my mother whispered into the ear of the image, "Mother Jagai, please come again next year. I will collect everything for your worship all year round." The next year, my mother said to me, "You also contribute something, and my Jagai will be worshipped." I replied, "I don't want to get involved with all this trouble. You have performed the worship once, that is enough. Why are you inviting more trouble? It is not necessary." My goodness, that same night I had a vivid dream in which Jagadatri and her two companions, Jaya and Vijaya, appeared and said, "Shall we go away then?" "Who are you?" I asked. One of them said, "I am Jagadatri." I then said, "No, mother, where will you go? Please stay. I didn't ask you to leave." From then on, I have been coming to Jairambati every year during Jagadatri Puja. We did not have too many members in our family, so I used to clean and wash the worship vessels and to look after puja preparations by myself. After 12 years, Holy Mother thought it would not be necessary to continue the worship. But on the very night that she decided to discontinue the worship, Mother Jagadatri again appeared in a dream and said to her, "Sadhu, Madhu Mukhopadhyay's aunt wants to worship me. Shall I go there?" When she asked 3 times, "Shall I go?" Holy Mother held her feet eagerly and said, "Mother, I won't let you go. I shall worship you at your house every year." Later, the devotees brought 3.5 acres of rice fields in the name of the deity, so that the worship of Mother Jagadatri could continue. Later, Swami Yogananda brought wooden plates and utensils, so that the mother would not have to scrub those metal utensils. So we see how deep this goes and how important it is to listen. You see, a lot of our practice is about listening, learning how to listen. A silent mind isn't just about inner peace. A silent mind is so that you can hear the voice of the divine. You know, Thakur himself says that the voice of God is that which arises in the silent mind. Only I would blow my nose at that point, but nonetheless, excuse me. This whole silence within is what allows us to commune with the beloved. You know, Thakur really does say that. He says that which you hear in the silent mind is the voice of the universe. That's how he says that. And so our seeking to find the separation from mind and body is not just for peace, not for the overwhelming sense of well-being that comes from that, but because that's how we hear the answer to prayer. That's how we hear the best direction to take in the moment. That's how we know what our duty is in the moment. And that's how we know how to navigate life without error, is listening in the moment. So our practice is about hearing. It's about hearing God, about hearing the presence, becoming aware of it, and living in it, living these kinds of truths, creating these kinds of stories, not by calculation and purpose, but by being and freedom. That's how these stories happen. The fifth visit. In March of 1881, Holy Mother traveled to Dakshineshwar from Jairambati with her mother, her brother Prasanna, her niece Lakshmi, and some neighbors. They traveled via Telobelo. On the way to Dakshineshwar, they stopped at Tarakeshwar to perform a special ceremony in which Holy Mother made an offering of her nail clippings and her hair to Lord Shiva in gratitude for her recovery from her recent illness. They then went to an apartment that Prasanna had rented in Calcutta. Holy Mother recalled, "The next day we all went to Dakshineshwar. No sooner had we arrived than Hriday, for some unknown reason, began to ask, why have they come? And what have they got to do here? He was rude and discourteous. My mother did not respond. Hriday was from Sihar, and my mother came from the same village. Nonetheless, Hriday did not show any respect to my mother. My mother said, let us all return home. With whom shall I leave my daughter? For fear of Hriday, the master remained quiet. We left the same day. Ramlal called a boat so that he could cross the river. While we were leaving, I mentally prayed to Mother Kali. Mother, if you bring me here again, I shall come. Hriday used to treat the Holy Mother rudely. He probably wanted to control the master by serving him and did not want any rival. The master cautioned him, saying, look here, you may insult me, but don't hurt her feelings. If he who dwells in this, meaning himself, hisses, you may somehow get by. But if he who dwells in her hisses, no one, not even Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva, will be able to protect you. This is quite a statement, about Mother as the divine. It shows the level of respect. We often think that Mother was sort of a puppet almost underneath Thakur's hand. But we see that in matter of fact, this is not the case at all. That Thakur recognized the Mother of the universe in Sri Sharada, and he knew that she held the ultimate authority. And he gave her that position or surrenders that position to her in the early days of the order. In her, literally, Vivekananda would not make a single move in the order or in his own spiritual life without her permission, without her instruction. Brahmananda also, all of those disciples had such a deep respect, not because she's a woman and they're a man, not because she's a mother, not for those reasons, but because Thakur had a very grim and deep, grave respect for the Divine Mother because of her power, because of her authority, because of what she was. And it's important to remember that because Mother is very sweet and Mother is very kind. But Mother is Kali. Mother can stop a battlefield, or she can create one, and she will, and do nothing but laugh in the midst of it. This is motherhood. This is the power of the feminine divine. And it's a new way and a new understanding, and one that we should have a profound respect for, because I think often in the modern world, this is what's missing, is this profound respect of the power and the sacredness of the feminine divine. There is a saying, pride must have its fall. Within 2 months of this incident, Hriday arranged his own downfall. Trilokya, a son of Mathur, came to Dakshineshwar with his wife and children to attend the annual Snanyatra festival in May of 1881. Hriday was conducting the worship in the Kali temple, and Trilokya's 8-year-old daughter was there without her parents. Suddenly, Hriday was seized with a desire to worship the goddess in the person of this little girl. And following tantric rites, he offered flowers and sandal paste at her feet. It was the sandal paste that betrayed Hriday. Trilokya's wife noticed it as soon as her daughter returned from the ceremony. When she heard what Hriday had done, she was horrified, for it was believed that if a Brahmin worshipped a girl of lower caste, she would be widowed soon after her marriage. When Trilokya saw his wife crying and learned the cause, he became furious and ordered Hriday to leave the temple precincts immediately. Ramlal then became the main priest of Kali. Puffed up with pride, he began to neglect the master, who often remained unconscious due to ecstasy. His food would dry up on his plate, and there was no one to look after him. The master sent repeated messages to Holy Mother asking her to return to Dakshineshwar. Finally, he sent the following message to her through Lakshman Pine of Karmarpur. I am experiencing great difficulty here. After becoming a priest in the Kali temple, Ramlal has joined the group of other priests. Now he pays no heed to me. Please come, by all means, any way that you like, in a litter or a palanquin. I shall bear the expense, be it 10 rupees or 20. Yeah. So we see his dependence on the Divine Mother also. This love, underneath all of this, probably the last thing that can be said, the least important thing that can be said, is they were married. They loved each other with a divine love and all the power of all of that we've learned about them. But in the end, they loved each other and they nurtured each other. They took care of each other and they brought each other, a great deal of strength and a great deal of learning. a marvelous play, just a marvelous conjuring of truth. Sixth and seventh visits. In January of 1882, Holy Mother returned to the Master via Telobhelo, probably traveling by palanquin up to Baidyapati, and then by boat to Dakshineshwar. She served the Master until June of 1883, and then returned to Jairambati. In January 1884, she returned to Dakshineshwar. After putting her cloth bundle in the Nahabat, she went to the Master's room and bowed down to him. A few days before, in a state of samadhi, the Master had fallen and fractured a bone in his left arm. The Master said to her when she had left home and learned that it was a Thursday afternoon, which is inauspicious according to the Bengali almanac, bowing before tradition, he said, "This is why I have broken my arm. Please return home and start your journey again at an auspicious hour." Holy Mother was ready to leave then and there, but the Master said, "Please stay today. You may go tomorrow." The next day, she left for Jairambati. It's a fascinating interlude there also. Swami Brahmananda also had that kind of strictness. And I, as a Westerner with a kind of a different set of traditions and perspectives from growing up, what I see in this is the deep involvement of the divine in all of their decisions and planning. That it was never, things were never done because they thought it best. Things were always done because they were auspicious, they were inspired, they were proper, they were of the divine permission. And Brahmananda makes that strong statement that he refused to do anything. He wouldn't act at all, unless he had the divine permission to do so. Brother Lawrence, he said, "I would not even pick a piece of straw off the ground without the permission of the beloved." So it's this awareness of God is not just a padding of bliss that we carry around, right? This loving of God, this knowing the presence, is our impetus for living. We look at somebody who needs help, and instinctively we go and help them, yes, but as surrendered souls to the divine, we always look out of the corner of our eye for Mother's face first, to make sure that it's her blessing, to make sure that we are reading the situation properly, that this is the thing to do. And so knowing the presence of God, becoming aware of the presence of God is not just for the bliss. It's not just for the joy that comes from that. But this is what, how do I say that? There's no way to really say that properly, but this is how we hear God. We talk about our practice becoming really the impetus for hearing, for listening, so that we become aware of that presence. But then it's also involved in that silence, in the growth of that silence, in the surrender that produces that silence. Also comes an obedience, an openness to the presence that drives us. It's in the Christian scripture. St. Paul makes an interesting statement. He says, "It's no longer I who live, but the Christ who lives in me." And so this is that notion of prayer, that we surrender this ego self. We surrender this ego ideal. And what does that mean? That means we become the divine, because we don't act of our own impetus anymore. We don't act out of our own decision and planning anymore. That we are so present in the moment that we can hear the voice of the divine directing us. And when we're unsure, or when we want to know what, we just simply glance. And in that glance comes the answer. In that purity of mind, in that quietness of solitude, of inner peace, the teachings of God are the thing that is heard. The presence of the universe manifests in you, and you become a blessing. You become a blessing in this world, not just a parasite of enjoyment. You become a gift to the world. That's your destiny. That's what you are intended to be. A blessing to everyone around you. Through your knowledge of the presence, through your listening to the presence, through your ability to act in the presence, spontaneously, in freedom. So this is where we'll stop tonight. Let me